Hypertension, also known as high blood pressure, is when the force of your blood is high against your artery wall. The causes of hypertension is being overweight. Being overweight causes your heart to work harder to pump blood into your body. Consuming a lot of salt, having a lot of alcohol and caffeine can decrease the size of your blood vessels. Smoking can cause your blood pressure due to nicotine making your blood vessels to get narrow. As you age, you are more likely to get high blood pressure. Heredity also plays a big role for hypertension. Hypertension can damage blood vessels and arteries, making the arteries less elastic, may put pressure on the heart, may make your blood vessels rupture, narrow, and leak. Sometimes that could show up in hypertension. Symptoms that could show up in hypertension are severe headaches, nosebleed, vision problems, chest pain, blood in urine, difficulty breathing, and irregular heartbeat. According to CDC, the role of genetics is likely for high blood pressure and other heart-related problems. Getting high blood pressure is also likely due to sharing the same environment and other potential factors with the same family members. Also, if your family member has an unhealthy lifestyle, it is likely that you might have one too. Also goes for unhealthy diet. If left untreated, you could die.
Great. Hello, my name is Zach Anderson. I will be representing the next parts of the slides. My brother Ezekiel Anderson. We have done this pedigree for both of us because it makes more logical sense. Our topic is hypertension, which you know about, and I will be discussing the data measurements. As you can see on this part of the family pedigree, two potential grandparents on my dad's side have it. My mom might have it, and we have an aunt who also was diagnosed with it, and we have another grandparent on my mom's side who was diagnosed with it. And out of me and Ezekiel's pedigree information, 3 of 4 grandparents have it. 2 on my dad's side and 1 on my mom's side. We also have an aunt who was diagnosed with hypertension. And my mom might possibly have it. She hasn't been diagnosed 100% by a doctor. My dad was diagnosed with hypertension medically and is on medical pills. And almost everybody was diagnosed with 30 or 40 years old, and then one older at 60 years old. This is Alicia's pedigree. As you can see, most of them are our grandparents with 50 to 60 years old. We have several in the 30s, and then one over 60 years old. Both of the Patel family have material grandparents have had it. Her mom is diagnosed with hypertension, and her uncle and her mom's side has also been diagnosed with hypertension. All the ages are roughly around 30 to 50 years old. Now, when it comes to genetics and hypertension, there's there's certain types of hypertension who got it from genetics. Usually, it's passed on from stress and high blood pressure from not dieting well. However, when both grandparents had it and your parents have it, you have a really high risk of getting hypertension as from a genetic disorder. So if you have a lot of family history, most likely you're gonna have hypertension. We have both. So as far we've noticed that all grandparents have pretty much hypertension, um, with at least one of their children having it, which increases your chance of getting hypertension. And then and then the and then now I'll pass it on to Ezekiel Anderson for the remaining of the slides.
All right. A little bit of a transition. Hello, I'm Ezekiel Anderson, and I'm going to be covering the third portion of our slides with Alicia was first. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and get into the summary. Yeah. So our family pedigree was pretty consistent with what we know just studying genetics of hypertension. So like Zachary just mentioned, in cases where both parents have it, their children usually have it. So the example of both Alicia's maternal grandparents having it, and then so her mother having it, both of our paternal grandparents having it, and then also our father. Yeah, so that's how we can kind of tell some stuff, just like consistency in that information. Now, while the family, when they have the condition, it's not all automatic, but it is frequent and predictable. So what that means is with hypertension, it doesn't carry a genetic inheritance that's like clear and precise, like some other diseases do that are very hereditary, unless it's a genetic mutation. So there is certain types of hypertension where it's a mutation that's involved, and then so in those scenarios, we can predict that hypertension will carry to the next generation. Although in cases of just kind of a typical hypertension, like I said, it's predictable, but it's not concrete. And it's frequent. And so, like I said, we did see that data from web articles match up with our own family pedigrees. So, while none of us authors do have hypertension, we can expect that some of us will, at least if measures aren't taken to avoid it. And probably based on our data, probably in our 40s. So most of our relatives did get hypertension in 30s, 40s, and 50s, and we had our paternal grandfather get it in his 60s, and he was an exception to that. So that's just a little bit of a prediction they'll be curious to see in the next couple decades. And that's just based on the pattern between our parents and grandparents. Environment versus genome and hypertension. So basically, hypertension is created by a mixture of both environment as well as genetic tendencies. So there's different things in our genetics that basically increase the likelihood of hypertension, but it's not automatic. So if you don't have an environment, and I'm going to talk about this more later in another slide, if you don't have an environment that's very conducive to hypertension, even if your parents have it, even if your grandparents have it and all that stuff, that still doesn't mean that you're going to have hypertension unless I said it's that genetic mutation that did pass on. And so you can edit your environment and give you an environment that gives you the best chance of not having hypertension. There's a lot of research that's actually going on into the genetics of hypertension. We were all finding that, a lot of the research is just inconclusive. So it's further being studied, and right now there's not a whole lot of concrete stuff about the genetics of it. And of course, good science with the scientific theory, it's always ongoing. So to say that really any of it is concrete is a little bit ignorant, in my opinion. Too fast. So hypertension phenotype. So the phenotype basically is high blood pressure. When somebody has high blood pressure, that is a pretty solid indicator that the hypertension is already existent, or if it's developing. High blood pressure, there's different types, and I have my data on here according to Medline Plus. So normal blood pressure, systolic blood pressure is going to be less than 120, and diastolic blood pressure normal is going to be less than 80. For high blood pressure, it's going to be 140 or higher for the systolic blood pressure, and 90 or higher for the diastolic blood pressure. I did want to read that off really quick. So basically, like I was saying, when somebody has high blood pressure, hypertension is either existent or on the way. So there is good news. Hypertension is avoidable or preventable, or at least you can better your odds. So basically, the risk of hypertension can be lowered by eating healthy, exercising, no smoking, limiting alcohol, stress management. I don't believe I have it on this slide, but also maintaining a healthy weight. So no overweight, obesity, things of that lot. And then the sources that we used were CDC had an article specifically on high blood pressure that we used, European Heart Journal, Medline Plus had a couple different articles that we used, and Springer Link, written by Michael Bernier and Gregoire Wutzner. That concludes our portion of the PowerPoint. Thank you for your time.